Okay, what are my goals today? My goals today is, like we just said, I wanna share wisdom both ways, right? So let's converse. There's just certain realities in different markets, in different situations where certain primers and certain clays just work. You've learned things just by doing, and I can't ever be you. Okay, you've spent your lives being you. So all we can do is collaborate and share what we know, so we have mutual success. I want to teach you guys today what's unique about this material and why it stands apart from quote unquote wall covering, right? We're veneer people. We're wood veneer people, and what's different is the substrates. So we're a multi-substrate opportunity in wood veneer, not just a wood wall covering. And I think that's an important distinction, and you're going to see why as we talk about it. I want to identify specific failure issues, right, and success points, because we're starting to see, or we've been seeing, sort of the same issues over and over again. And let's face it, you guys have seen it, I'm sure, in your business. If the substrate isn't right, whatever you put on it isn't going to be right. How do we identify those situations? And just because some materials worked for some other products doesn't mean it's going to work for our product. So we want to really identify where we're going to succeed together. And then, probably most importantly, is I want to know you guys. And I hope maybe you want to know me. And know that when things start to get interesting and complicated, I have no problem hopping on an airplane, coming here, and we sit with a client. And I have also no problem being in part, your champion should you feel something's not right. If your GC is trying to push you to install in conditions that's not right, I'd be happy to be the person beside you saying, well, the job site's not ready, and this is why. And if you install, I'd be happy to show you all the pictures of the claims of what your job will look like. So Robert may have a document that you'd like to sign as a full waiver, because you'll be repurchasing all of this material again. Okay, so I'd be happy to be that bad guy. Luckily I was on a VA job in Austin 2 weeks ago. Gosh, it's all the cities are blending in my head. And substrate wasn't right. We stopped the job. Luckily, everyone was listening to us. So, believe it or not, that installation right here that you're seeing, okay, you actually could feasibly do that if this is the highest level of, I would imagine, our skill sets. This is, that is on the border of China and Russia. It is our veneer bonded to glass reinforced gypsum, okay? And it is installed like a giant paper mache. So this is designers and architects go bananas for all these complex curvatures and so forth. Our material is uniquely capable, but it requires the highest level of skill sets and commitment. And and by the way, money. It takes a lot of money. Okay, so but this is kind of like the Super Bowl of installation of our type of veneer, and hopefully one day we might actually get to those sorts of conversations, because folks are going to be wanting that. So what do we know about wood veneer? Anybody wood fans like to play around carpentry? Yeah, a little bit? All right. So there's two different versions, two different levels of architectural or wood veneers, right? Let's just say, so you have your architectural premium wood veneer, and you have your commodity, right? So if you go to Home Depot, you just want to buy some wood veneer, it's going to be price, it's going to be volume, and it's going to look beautiful because it's wood. But when you start to do a lot of really big spaces like the picture I just showed you, you need to be super mindful of what every log is, and you follow the sequence as it comes off of the log. And that's what these guys are doing right here. These guys are looking at the leaves coming off of the log, and it's going exactly in the same sequence. It comes off of that timber, and they're paying attention to what it looks like. And the moment it stops looking exactly the same or starts to change too much, they put a slip sheet in that, and they're going to call that a different flitch number. So a log begets a timber, right? The timber then begets leaves, and those leaves that are all that look similar, they're going to be a flitch number. So each log has multiple flitch numbers, and then we can look at them when we look at your elevations and we figure out, all right, what do we want our elevations to look like? But this product's all made by hand. The Japanese culture is known for a couple things: precision and slicing things. Maybe it comes back from the samurai days, don't know. But when it comes to keeping things super sharp and super precise, that's just part of their culture. And so slicing a wood veneer down to 0.2 millimeter is something that is uniquely Japanese. Not only slicing it, but then actually making it into a finished product, okay? So, this is our factory, Hoxan, is how it's pronounced. And Hoxan is celebrated their 100th anniversary this year. Mr. Oyama, his great-great-grandson, is now taking over. So it's really 100 years of family passion into producing beautiful product. This is their showroom in Tokyo. And the reason why we brand this product as Sanfoot, by the way, is because 100 years ago, a young man stumbles upon a stump in the snow, wipes off the snow, sees how beautiful the grain is, and starts making women's sandals. So how women walk in that, I have no earthly idea, but that's what those are. And so that's hence our brand name, Sanfoot. And when we take the log and we start to cut up those components, now it's going to be, okay, what's a flat cut? What's a quarter cut, right? So we're going to talk about the different cuts of the wood, so that, and it's going to all be impactful on the visual. And I think it's important you guys all know this sort of stuff, because as the people being responsible for the final install, it's important you understand how all this stuff is made and how all this stuff is going to need to look when it ends up on the job site. And by the way, the installation of this is a premium, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this Sanfoot Pro, is because we as a manufacturer only want folks like yourselves who are paying attention and communicating with us. We're trying to keep, folks that just think they can do it on the cheap and they can do it on a rush. That's not the people I want. I can't train care. So that's why, again, I really appreciate y'all being here today. So leaves, that's what these are. These are, and if you notice, these leaves, when you stack them back up, start to look a lot like the log, right? Going back to that very important word, sequencing. That's what separates the architectural premium wood veneer from the commodity wood veneer. Commodity wood veneer guys, they go to the side of the mountain, they take all the oak trees from the side of the mountain, they slice it up, and then here's your oak. And they want to get volume and they want to get price, okay? The premium architectural folks are saying, no, we're going to look at that oak tree and that walnut tree. And we're willing to pay maybe double the price for that walnut tree because it's straight, it's got the right diameter, it's got the right growing area, it's going to give us the right kind of graining that we want, right? So the level of detail from even the people that we know that we're sourcing the logs from around the world is very different than when you're a commodity veneer guy or factory. So cool little thing, that hammer. So when our log buyers are running around the world and they're looking at one log for another, they give it a whack, and that says, we're buying that log, and it makes its way to Japan to get sliced. So the slicing methods of the log have every impact on what you see in the log. So just a quick summary. You've got your flat cut, right? Now the flat cut, and that's what you see there, is a flat cut. It's because you're going very angular to the growth rings, because that's ultimately what this is all about. You got the growth rings on the tree, right? So how the blade hits the growth rings is what you're going to see, whether it be a flat cut, a quarter cut, or a rotary cut. Those are the three main ways you slice the logs. So here's our warehouse, part of it at least. And you know, you can see all the tags here. So these are all just in inventory based on our production expectations, so that we know these are the leaves that we have to make sheet goods based on the elevations, okay? Communication is super crucial to I'm looking at my estimators, okay? Super crucial because we have an 8-month, give or take, lead time to source new logs, sometimes longer, okay? So big jobs, when I get into hundreds of sheets, especially thousands of sheets, I ask for heads up. Hey, we got this job coming down. It's probably not for a year, but it's looking like it's pretty good. Like, you know, this is going to happen. That's all we needed. Suzanne just needs to know that. Even if it's a year and a half, 2 years, we'll put that on our whiteboard to say, hey, you know, we're seeing demand of oak come up. We're seeing demand of walnut come up. We're seeing, you know, some other crazy species. Because I tell folks that wood veneer is a little bit like going to a fish market. Because you know you're going to go to a fish market and you can always find salmon and tuna. Pretty much, right? Rarely, almost always. Well, that salmon and tuna is like my walnut and oak, right? Pretty much, I got a big pile of oak logs at the yard. But there was a period when we didn't have a big pile of oak logs. Why? It's because all of a sudden, everyone in the industry, in design industry and construction, decided they wanted white oak at the same time, right? So it was a period when it was really difficult for us to supply the oak demand. Now we've caught up to that, right? But that's why those heads up are really important. But right now it's getting really hard for us to get some of the African species because of geopolitical, you know, can't get along in Africa, I guess, right? So so whatever's going on, wars, difficult in shipping, whatever, environmentalism, any of those sort of things are going to limit our abilities to get certain species. So the communication is super key because we may have to slice the log, we may not have the log, we may not have the log the day you want it. And then there are other things. These are called reconstituted blocks. These are man-made logs, right? And they're made in Italy, but they have an 8-month lead time too, okay? So getting that heads up on the big deals are a big deal. And we'll talk a little bit about what recons are. So there's, you can see those flat cut leaves, and they've gotten reassembled as they came off the log. And you see that light color off of there, right? That's the sapwood. And that sapwood usually gets trimmed out, but you'll notice that, see, the dimension of that leaf is changing as you go in the log. So if we're making the sheets, right? We're making the sheets, the dimensions of those leaves, the visual is going to change as we go through the project. But that's where we want to have the discussions of the elevations, because that's called the breakdowns. We want to know the breakdowns of which areas we're going to be producing sheets for. And so this is part of how we do what's called the live flitch review, okay? Because those samples that are sitting on your table, right? We call those dead flitch. Meaning those leaves are gone. They're somewhere around the world looking beautiful. These samples are merely representations of how we can communicate what we're going to make for you, so you can get an idea of the species, the tonality, stuff like that. And then when I look at this, I see, okay, 162010, that's my log number. And then I've got that same number, 162010. I've got number 11, number 4, I've got 5, and I've got 6. So I have, those were timbers that were cut off of the log, and then each of these numbers, 4, 5, 6, and 11, were slightly different. So they were worth saying they're different flitch numbers, but they're similar. So, and then we know how many leaves we have. So I know in number 4 I can make about 30 sheets. So that's why those breakdowns in these discussions, and again this comes back to the conversations we want to have with the estimators, to say, like, okay, how are we going to build these sheets so when they come to the job site they're going to look, that elevation is going to look right, that elevation is going to look right. Because if you don't have enough to complete that elevation and you got to steal from another one, is it going to look right? Don't know, right? And that's what we want to prevent. Because this is a very high value product and a very high value installation. So we should be paid to take the time to care. We should be very happy to have a Jacaranda Sanfoot specification from the hard work of Suzanne to say, whoa, we got one. We're going to make some money, but let's give it the care and the time so we can all be proud of this thing at the end, okay? And I would rather walk away from a project than try to, rush it and not have it look right. So this is our log yard, part of it, and just this pile, of these 2 piles, that's just white oak. So we're ready for some volumes, right? Each one of those logs, we could probably get about 3,000 sheets of veneer. There's a lot of veneer here, okay? But notice some of those logs are longer than others. So what size do you need? You want 8 foot, 10 foot? You want maybe 13 feet? We can do that. That's our longest sheet, 13 feet. Hard to handle, right? But you can do it, right? So we do 2 foot wide, 3 foot wide, 4 foot wide. 4 foot wide gets, again, a little hard to handle. So most of our products that we're doing in the 3 foot widths, okay? Pile next to it is the walnuts. And then you look beyond the yard, you'll have all sorts of different species from various parts of the world, right? You've got some of those big giant African species, Paldeo and so forth. Those, again, those are the logs that are getting harder to get. And there's my colleague, Peter Whittlesey. His grandfather started the business here in the States. And just to give you a sense of the diameter of some of those logs. And nothing goes to waste in Japan. It's part of the culture. So even all the off-fall that you see there, we use that to run our boilers. So we're doing everything we can to minimize our impacts. And just to get a little bit more further view of what the factory looks like, what the slicing factory looks like. So we went from those logs and we go into those timbers, right? And now those timbers, if we have enough time, those logs will be soaking in one of these pools. And you saw that in that little short video. Because we want to soften the log. We want to get it to the point where it's going to slice nice and easy. But if we have a rush order, we've got these pressure cookers. And those things will help us get from the log to the slicing process a bit faster. After the debarking, and the team looking at the log, figuring out what is going to be the best way to slice this log based on the way the growth rings that they see at the edge. And very appropriately, the log buyer is at the other end of the saw, looking at the log as it's coming through its milling to see, did he get what he thought he needed? Is this forest and this supplier giving us the right kind of product that we need? Do I need to buy more? Okay, those sort of things. So a lot of these, like you guys know, a lot of this experience comes over decades, this knowledge. And so we've learned a little bit in the last 100 years of what it takes. And I'll just let that go. So see that sapwood? See how far that is? And then you see the heartwood And the heartwood is, as and by the way, that's always going to be different, right? How much sapwood is on the outer ring of the tree. The heartwood is that chemical transformation that goes darker, it's harder, it's more insect resistant, okay? And so that's, again, part of our communication. What part of the log are we going to slice and give to the customer? The heartwood, the sapwood, or both? So, yeah, we talked about these guys, how important that visual is, and the moment it starts to change, they put a slip sheet in there, and then they call it a different flitch number. Sorry. I love selfies. So something like this in a premium architectural, that's rejected. That's unacceptable to us. As soon as they see that in the timber, they pull that out. And it goes to another part of the industry that's going to be looking for, solid timbers, and they'll make profiles out of it or different millings. But that will not end up in a premium veneer. Also, I'm going to kind of back to my estimators here. The importance of the heads up. When you guys ask us for custom stains, right, custom finishes, it's done by hand. And this is not easy work. And this is an environment where there are smells and, stuff like that. And you can't rush this. All right? So when you guys say, oh man, we need you on the job, it's like, please give me your order early enough so I can make the product the right way. Please. Because when every sheet's made by hand, we need the time it takes to make it. All right? And if we rush it, I've had these guys tell me, because the Japanese, they have actually a real issue where they have worked themselves to death. They're a bit of workaholics. You may have heard that or heard of that. So they'll sometimes sleep at the factory. That does not make me happy. You don't want to be sleeping on your job sites, and so please make sure we communicate and get the information so we give them enough time to make the product. So here's one of our examples. We call this our Hoke mail, right? Hoxan mail. This is how we go back and forth in our communications with you to say, what do we need in our elevations? What do we need in our overall visuals? Do we have enough raw material to do those elevations? And this information goes back and forth so that we know that when this stuff leaves our factory, it's what you need on your job site to install the right way and to make it look the right way, okay? Because sometimes we might make recommendations. We might need a little bit of give and take. You might be asking me for a burl that's just not available anymore, so we're going to give you some alternates, right? Those are some of the dialogues that we need to have, and we do our very best in working with specifiers to teach them about just how all of these assemblies are going to go together so they know how to write their specification. Because in certain cases, when they look at a sample, it's not an indication of what it's going to look like on the wall, right? So we try our best, but sometimes we're changing things right before the order's placed because maybe we didn't catch the designer at the time they were specifying, and they're specifying something that's going to have what we call barber pole, where it starts to look really stripy, and we say, we don't think you'll be happy with that.